Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. So I was just parked here in a parking lot. I gotta head off to Costco, right? And I was kind of going through the comments on the video that we had just dropped yesterday or the day before, the one about the bitch slap between Gordon Ryan and Ryan-Galvao, and it made me think of some things and some characteristics about people who train jiu-jitsu, right? You have that crowd that was not trained classically in a self-defense mindset. Most people today are trained more in the sport mindset and how jiu-jitsu is not fighting, it's a sport. You know, they say fight, like when you get into a match, they don't call it a match, they call it a fight. It's not really a fight though. You know, because as we saw, you know, and I don't know the whole reason why the whole Galvao Ryan thing didn't turn into a fight. I'm thinking it should have turned into a fight, but you know, that's just me talking, and I'm by no means a good example for anyone to necessarily follow. But it's obvious by all the events leading up to it, that obvious to me, that a fight was sought, right? And so, for instance, you know, you got a lot of trolling happening on Instagram, and you know, then the other one who's a victim of some of the trolling, you know, granted, Gordon Ryan trolls everybody. You know, he's an expert troller. You know, not only expert grappler, he's expert troller as well. And trolled Ryan-Galvao, and I guess challenged him to a match, right? A grappling match, no rules and all that, you know, whereas Galvao is used to the IBJJF world, right? You know, rules and time, what do you call it? Time limits, right? And points and all that. And whereas Gordon Ryan is used to the no time limit and submission only type format, right? So this kind of be a good situation to have, you know, a top level guy in one environment going up against a top level guy in another environment. So I'm not super familiar with the trolling that goes back and forth, but I know that there has been trolling. And you know, the rumor that I heard was that Galvao said he'd only take a match, let's say at Abu Dhabi or something, if he's paid $1 million. You know, some ridiculous number. Basically, it's you know, you pay me $1 million, I'll do it. Which is kind of like a, well, you know, it didn't happen because you didn't have the $1 million for me. You know, which is kind of a way you look at it. He really didn't want to fight, or didn't want to really have a match. Because somebody who really wants a match says, I don't care what it costs, or, you know, you don't have to pay me anything, and you name the time and place, I will be there, right? That's the old school type thinking. Anyway, so they have this match with, I think, Craig Jones against one of Galvao's guys, and Craig Jones wins, and Gordon Ryan goes to shake his hand, and he flips him off, and you know, so there, you know, so you got the trolling on one side from Ryan, and you got the flip off from Galvao, right? Somebody like Gordon Ryan could have looked at it as, you know, touche, you know, I've been trolling you all this time on Instagram and you flipped me off, I get it, you know, we're good. But to go back in and, you know, to for Galvao, presumably based on what we saw in the video, to come out and say, you know, why are you running from me, why are you ducking me, or something like that. And then Gordon Ryan, you can hear him clearly saying, you know, I'm ducking you, I'm running away from you, what are you talking about, I'm not ducking you. And then he gets right up to him like, I'm not ducking you, goes right up into his face. So, you know, Galvao then is frustrated, shoves him away, and by shoving him away, you know, you think of all the escalation that's happening. It starts with the trolling, then with the flipping off, you know, but after the flipping off, it should have ended there. I mean, it could have ended there, but to then go after Gordon Ryan and tell him you're ducking me, dodging me, or running away, whatever you want to say, you know, now you're trying to take it to the next level. Now you're trying to get one up on somebody, and finally it escalates to a slap. But you get slapped in the face after, you know, pushing it. It's kind of time to fight, wouldn't you think, right? But instead he lets himself get slapped again, and after it was over, you know, curiously follows him over to where, you know, Ryan is sitting over at an interview, and Ryan then telling him, why are you coming over to me? I'm like, don't quote me, I don't know exact words, but, you know, why are you coming over here? I mean, you had your chance then, you know, I slapped you in the face and you didn't do anything, right? So here's the way I kind of look at it, you know, now that whole thing, right? So now you can kind of see where I'm coming from here. Blue belts, right? At least, you know, historically speaking, back in the old Gracie Jiu-Jitsu days, you know, one thing that a blue belt typically wanted to do is a blue belt wanted to get in a fight. And the reason is because they kind of want to test things out, right? They've got this newfound superpowers, right? And they kind of want to see how it does against guys in the street. And I remember friends in Hawaii, you know, if you saw the interview that I did with the Onzuka twins, you know, they were part of that when they were blue belts. I never really had that when I was a blue belt. For me, it actually came maybe late blue or early purple. And that's where, you know, you get some kind of road rage incident, I remember. And, you know, some guy cut me off and I flipped him off and I put my highlights on. I shine my highlights on his face and he goes and points, you know, like let's, you know, get off the road. Let's go there. So I did, right? Threw all my keys, everything on the car. I said, come on, let's go. And he kind of thought better. I'm just, no, maybe not, right? You know, because I wasn't afraid, and not to say that anybody is afraid, but I was actually looking to get in a fight. And, you know, luckily it didn't happen, and it turns out he and I, we actually became friends later. It's the funniest story. But, you know, it also happened at the airport. You know, rent-a-car bus driver cut me off, and I pulled over next to him and basically told him, step out of the van. Let's see what you got, right? But that I outgrew, right? I never, once I got deep in a purple belt, I never even thought about that kind of stuff. It didn't dawn on me to do that. And here's the reason. And the reason why you see so few black belts getting into fights, it's because they've seen what people can do, especially people who you don't know, right? You never know what somebody's going to do, right? Just like with any, like a Super Bowl game, you can look on paper, or any in a basketball game, whatever. On paper, one team is better, right? There's no doubt in your mind that team is going to win, but you do the game anyway because you never know. And tell me you haven't seen it yourself. More often than not, you might think that a team is going to win because they should win, and then they end up losing, right? That's why we play the game. That's why we do the match, right? That's why you do the fight. You don't walk in thinking to yourself, you know, I can kick your ass, and as a result, you know, you go and pick on him because you know you can kick his ass. That's what bullies do, right? Bullies will do that kind of stuff, right? And I'm not anti-bully or anything. You know, to me, bullies need to be put in their place. And, you know, you can't tattle on a bully. You have to fight a bully. That's just kind of how it is. Otherwise, the bully's going to keep doing it. Well, you get the action happening where, and I don't know what it is, because I don't see why anybody would want to bully Gordon Ryan. And on the other side, I don't see why anybody would want to bully Ryan-Galvao. But you kind of have this going on. But I think maybe from Gordon Ryan's perspective, it's more to hype a match, and, you know, but he can back it up, right? On the other hand, you know, Galvao, I think he was genuinely upset, and, you know, was reacting kind of emotionally and angrily, and, you know, let Ryan get the better of him. But he certainly didn't do things the way I would suspect a black belt would do it. Because if you're a black belt and you've been around the road enough times, or on the block enough times, you know that there's always somebody bigger, better, faster, stronger, right? You never pick on somebody. Now, you're always there to deal with a confrontation that could happen, but you never go and start it, right? To me, when I'm watch myself, my path, and my friends who are now black belts, and my students, blue belt is when they tend to want to kind of test things out. They want to see if what they've been taught is really true. But at black belt, you've already gone through purple, brown, and you know that, you know, any guy comes off of the street into the studio, you can just kind of tell as you're, you know, working with the guy, training with the guy, whatever, that you can do anything you want to him. It's not an issue. But you also are humble enough to know that as a black belt, that sometimes you can get your ass kicked. I mean, don't tell me you as a black belt have never been beaten by a purple belt, for instance, legitimately beaten, right? Where he took it from you. It's not, you didn't give him anything. He just came through and took what he wanted. And knowing that, you'd think that you have some level of caution, if not humbleness. You know, humble is a big word that people throw around, humble, ego, all that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking cautiousness, right? You don't go and instigate something unless you're just outright not thinking, right? Because shit can happen, right? So I think that slap in the face was kind of a wake-up call. It's like, wait a minute, you know, I was just talking shit here, and I didn't really want to fight. And that's the way it comes out, right? That's the way it looks. It was like, okay, push comes to shove. Here, I slapped you in the face. Now what are you going to do, right? The key, guys and gals, is to not let it get to that point. That's why 99% of fights are 100% avoidable. But there are times when you absolutely cannot avoid it. You need to avoid stuff, but we train for that 1% of the time that we cannot avoid it, or the time we may need to protect a family member or a friend or somebody. But don't go instigating stuff. Don't go chasing after people. And I tell my students, if you're trying to engage with somebody, let's say you're trying to get to a clinch and they're backing off, don't follow them. If they're running away, stop, say, all right, this guy doesn't want to fight. I don't want to fight. Let's just call it a day, right? But by chasing after them, that's where you likely get struck. That's where something will happen to you and you won't expect it. Now, it also happens verbally as well, right? You can go after somebody verbally and go after them. But at some point, if they're not engaging with you, it's not a back and forth kind of thing. They may strike you a good one, whether it be, if they're just trolling you, they may troll you a good one, come from nowhere and just hit you with a good one, or they may bitch slap you. So, guys and gals, avoid this behavior. People say it's not the Jiu-Jitsu way and all that. No, the Jiu-Jitsu way is to fight, right? The old school Jiu-Jitsu guys, the whole thing was about a fight. It was, guys would go to clubs and they would just start fights with guys in clubs just so they can fight them, just to kind of see how good they are. Now, that's not the smartest thing to do, because when you do that, you don't know if the guy has a knife, has a gun, all that kind of stuff. I mean, he may up the ante to a very high level, a level you're not willing to go into. And I think that's what happened with Galvao. He got it escalated to a point where he wasn't quite ready to go there, right? So, I don't know how people think, but I think he was humiliated. And, it's not to say anybody can be humiliated. But a lot of times what you do is you put yourself in that position to be humiliated. So the best thing is just keep yourself out of trouble. As they used to tell me when I was a kid, keep your nose clean, right? And stay out of that kind of situation, right? Like bar fights happen a lot, right? I've never gotten into one. Why? I don't go in the bars, right? But if you're going to go into one, be ready for it to be a possibility. You may walk out of bars and never get into a situation, but by being there, you could end up being collateral damage. And just don't get into trouble. So if you guys are blue belts and you think to yourself, hey, let me test this out, don't, right? Save it for the training. And if something comes up to you on the street that you cannot avoid, then you're going to have to defend yourself. But do not go looking for anything. Do not go chasing after somebody. Do not tell him, why are you running from me and all this, because he may turn around and pop you one that you're not expecting and you'll be done for. Or in a worst case situation, he may stab you. He may shoot you, right? Stuff like that happens. He may literally be afraid of his life while you're coming after him, just talking to him. But he's going, I'm afraid for my life, and carries a gun and boom, blows you away. So don't be arrogant as well. Black belts should know better, and my hope is that he's learned a lesson from this, because he's got a lot to lose, right? He runs a very successful business, a very successful academy with successful affiliates, and being put in that type of situation, you could end up losing a lot. I'm sure there's that that one Gracie family member who ended up popping that other guy in the face. Who knows what he's lost, right? How many people that are his students, want to be associated with him. A lot of them are professionals. They don't want any trouble like that. Oh, you go and train at his place? Like that. For them, they'll just go somewhere else. And just realize how much you have to lose, and don't get trapped in it with this whole, jiu-jitsu ego thing. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye now.